Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Picard Season 1 Episode 6, The Impossible Burger. I mean the Impossible Box. I'm sorry, every time I think of this episode name or hear this episode name, I think of an Impossible Burger and it makes me hungry. I want to have an Impossible Burger. They're so good. But no, it's called the Impossible Box, which if Guy had to guess. I think it's referring to that little box that Narek was playing with, the Rubik's Cube type things. But obviously, it's not just referring to that. Obviously, it's a metaphor for the entire episode, and there's lots of things could be considered an impossible box, like Soji's past, or Picard dealing with his Borg thing, or the Borg cube itself is kind of a box. And yeah, it's an overall metaphor, the way most episode titles tend to be, but it makes me want a burger. And I think it's mainly the Rubik's Cube thingy. I think it might be called an impossible box. I don't know for sure. Anyway, this episode, this video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Picard. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for Picard up to Season 1, Episode 6. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things will be spoiled for you. Anyway, this episode I did enjoy a lot better than the last episode. I thought it was a lot, better structured, better put together. I think this is sort of a return to form for me, and I think it spells out good things for the show to come. It has me interested and engaged again. I thought it was a very suspenseful, very engaging episode, but I did have a lot of nitpicks for it, so brace yourselves. I know there's some people who hate nitpicks, or they just want someone to come on and be like, this episode's amazing, I love it, it's the best thing ever, which has never been me, by the way. But just a special warning here to sort of brace yourself, because I will be nitpicking this a lot, because there's a lot of bits and bobs that bothered me about this episode, but overall, I still think it was a really good, powerful episode. So, I probably would not go as far as say that this was the best of the season so far. I still like the premiere, and maybe the episode 4 with Eleanor might be a little bit, I don't know, because I had less nitpicks about that one. Anyway, so, getting into the episode. It's interesting because each episode Picard usually tends to start with a flashback, usually having to do with the Mars attack. Of course, they broke tradition with that last week, and the flashback had to do with 709, and then we got a second flashback with Bruce Maddox. But this week, it's not really a flashback, it's a dream. And I think it's pretty much, some people could argue that maybe it's a flashback, maybe it's a memory, but I think it's pretty much that this is just imagery. It's a dream, it's a metaphorical, it's not something that actually happened in the past, in real life before. So, because, of course, we know it shows Soji as a young girl, and as we know, Soji was never a young girl. She was created by all evidence 37 months ago, according to that little time recorder thingy. So it's, and Narek kind of explained when he was talking to his twin sister, he kind of explained that it was her subconscious, and trying to reckon her the part that she thinks she's human and the part that knows she's synthetic, sort of conflicting with each other. And yeah, I think that's totally what I got out of it as well. So So we start with Agnes saying, talking about how Bruce Maddox died and how he just couldn't take it, whatever. And I knew this was going to happen. It was so predictable. In fact, my complaint about this has more to do with last week's episode than this week's episode, and that is I don't buy. I know she's a cybernetic expert and computer expert, could manipulate the good records or whatever to make it look like a natural death, but still, like, alarms should have gone off. And someone else pointed out that the EMH, like the psychiatrist one, saw her killing Bruce Maddox. So I don't know. To me, I don't really buy that that she could get away with it so easily. You'll never get away with this. And maybe they will eventually learn the truth. But I knew this would happen because it's exactly what. Because it's plot convenience. It's exactly what would happen in most TV shows. They need them because the show itself, the plot's not ready for the others to find out what she did, so they're not going to find out. And that's kind of sloppy writing, but again, this has more to do with my complaints in last week's episode than it does in this week's, because I kind of knew this would happen. Anyway, and then we get, like, the scene with her kissing Rios, and as soon as they kiss, I was like, but when I thought about it more, I was like, actually, it doesn't bother me so much. I mean, there's people on a ship, there's not very many, options there, and so they're both sort of afraid, and they're kind of hooking up to sort of settle their tensions and to distract themselves from the danger they're going into. And if you look at it that way, I guess it kind of makes sense. But overall, it's just very cliche to have two random characters that just happen to be of opposite genders hook up just for the hell of it. So, I don't know. Anyway, so they prepare for their mission to go to the artifact, the Borg cube, and someone suggests that they get these fake identities and whatever. Pose as scientists, I think Agnes said, but Picard is like, no, the best way is just to not try to put on deception. Let's do it whatever the hell Eleanor's group is called. Do it their way and just flat out. Although his way's absolute candor, and they're not really being absolutely candid, are they? Because they're not telling everyone exactly why they're there. But regardless, is to not go in disguise, is to get official Federation so Picard could come on as the official Federation ambassador. Now, my first thought upon hearing this is, why didn't he do that before? Why? And if he asked someone for Federation to be the official ambassador, the response would probably be the sheer fucking hubris. So why does he expect that now? I don't really get it. And so he says, well, I'm not going to be the one to get the permission from the Federation. It's going to be Raffi. So Raffi just happens to know someone that just happens to be in a position of power in order to grant this to her. Now, several issues I have with this. First of them being, surely Picard knows a fuck ton more people in those high positions in Starfleet than Raffi would. And secondly, why wouldn't Picard go to this in the first place instead of going to Admiral Clancy, who obviously thinks he has sheer fucking hubris, which is what I complained about in that episode back then. Because, I mean, not just all the time we've seen on Star Trek Next Generation, where he was captain of the fucking flagship of the fucking Starfleet, where he created so many contacts, he knew so many people. Even beyond that, there's like, how many ever years was it? It was 14 years prior to this. I can't remember. So this was like 25 years. So it was like 11 years or whatever after Nemesis. where he was a fucking admiral, that he built up even more contacts, so you can combine all of that. And plus, he was been a captain ever since the Stargazer, like years and years. So he's been high up, building a position in Starfleet and Federation for decades. And you're telling me that no one that he knew is in a position to help, and they have to turn to Raffi? Bullshit. This is obviously done to give Raffi something to do. We need to make her character, her cliche character, relevant to the plot, so let's have her settle this. And so it gives her the scene where she's being like, oh, well, I'm going to drink myself to death. But anyway, so I didn't like that. But anyway, the actress who she was talking to, the character that she was talking to, who was like, gave her the permission, but was like, never call me again. Plus, that tactic was kind of dumb. She was just like, when she's like, oh, give us this ambassador status, she's like, no, absolutely not, I can't do that. She's like, well, we're going to the Borg Cube anyway, we just figured that, rather than start a war, like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like that tactic should actually work, but whatever. But anyway, the actress who played the character she was talking to, I recognized so much, but I couldn't quite place her. I thought maybe she had appeared in Star Trek before, and it was a character I recognized from Star Trek, but after I watched the episode, I looked it up on IMDb, and she wasn't on Star Trek. I actually recognized her from Prison Break. She was in the last couple seasons of Prison Break, and I was like, oh yeah. But she looked so familiar to me. But that's what it's from. It had nothing to do with Star Trek, so it's a new character. So there's so many older characters. Like, we're gonna see Riker next week, so we're gonna obviously get the impression that he's not in Starfleet anymore. So maybe that's why he couldn't go to him. But surely there's someone that he knew all this time. Like, I don't buy there's absolutely no one that Raffi would have a stronger connection to. I just don't buy it. Anyway, moving past that, we get more of the Narek and his twin cess thing, which I still hate. Although I will admit it wasn't quite as annoying in this episode, at least as far as the plot to... Why did they have to make it his sister, and why did they have to make her, like, hitting on him sexually and acting like she really wants to fuck him very badly? Like, why are they doing this? Why? I don't get it. But leaving all that aside, which it just seems like they're copying Game of Thrones, plain and simple. Like, there's no other reason. Oh, Game of Thrones was popular with this twin sis thing, so let's do it. That seems to be the only reason. But leaving all of that aside, I did like the storyline of Narek trying to unravel the mystery, and of the pressure that Rizzo, or whatever the hell her name is, Cersei Lannister, the pressure that she was putting on Narek to get it done. Like that actually I did like, and did find sort of raised the stakes, and it was sort of interesting how he was able to deduce that the dreams were actually the key to finding out where the rest of the androids were, because he knew that she didn't consciously know, but her subconscious knew, and so this was the best way to figure it out. So that made it really interesting. And then you had Picard finding out that Hugh wasn't in charge of this project, which is, I don't know, it seems all too convenient, super easy, barely an inconvenience. It seems a bit too convenient to me that he just so happens to have a friend in a high position. The way when they meet, it's like they act like they're like old friends, which I guess they kind of are, but they knew each other for like a couple hours, basically. But anyway, I mean, I can see why Picard would be an endearing figure to Hugh, because he was the one who helped liberate him from the collective and regain his humanity. Although Picard was kind of a dick to him at first. Geordi was the bigger figure, but whatever. As always, Geordi is the better friend in Picard. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It did seem kind of all too easy. That he just happened to have a good, someone who's in such good terms with him in a position of power, able to help him. But, like I said, I really love this episode, but I am going to be complaining a lot of little things that bugged me. But I did find the overall story of Picard going to the Borg cube and I think the uses of the flashbacks, which I don't know. I didn't pause I wasn't super nerdy about it. I just don't have the time and pause freeze frame and see every little snippet that they had in those flashes of him seeing the Borg. But my guess, or at least not my guess, but what I could gather from just watching the episode once, is the scenes tended to be, all the ones I recognized anyway, were from First Contact. From Star Trek First Contact, not from Best of Both Worlds. Which, Star Trek First Contact has better cinematography and it looks a bit more modern, so it blends in better with Picard, so I can kind of understand why they would go with that. But the First Contact wasn't when he was assimilated by the Borg. That was Best of Both Worlds. So it seems like all this trauma should come from Best of Both Worlds, not First Contact. But that's, splitting hairs, whatever. Not really that important. But anyway, I did love that. I loved that he was experiencing that trauma of being there, and he's having to face his anxiety of being there. And I did like him sort of reconnecting with Hugh. It was and I love the ticking clock element of how he's trying to find Soji at the same time Narek was close to unraveling the mystery of finding out what he wanted to know, and once he knew that, she's dead. So that was a really effective element to this episode that I think really worked. Now, backtracking a little bit to another nitpick that kind of bothered me was Narek, not Narek, what's the Elnor? Where Elnor's like, oh, let me come with you, and Picard's like, no, I gotta go alone, and I order you not to come. It was the most predictable thing in the world that Elnor would defy him and come in at the last second and save his life. That was so fucking predictable, it's unbelievable. But anyway, I think this is the first episode I would think that I didn't mind the Soji storyline. Because, and in fact, I really liked it. I liked the way they played with their flashbacks. I liked the way, she was discovering that her mother, there's something up with, that she falls asleep to her. I am curious why Narek told her that their calls only last exactly 70 seconds every time. I guess he was trying to kind of wanted to throw her in a spiral where she would seek his help. I guess that was the whole purpose of it, because that led to her carbon dating all of her photographs, and why would they still have photographs? No one hardly even uses photographs in 2020, let alone 24th century, but whatever. So she carbon dated all of her photographs and drawings as a kid, and found out they're all 37 weeks old. Or 37 months, was it? Yeah, 37 months, I believe. So just a couple years old, and so that makes no sense to her, and she starts freaking out. All that I thought played out really good. So this is the first time I've really found Soji, really interesting, got me invested. And as I said, it had me worried about her, and had, wanting Picard to rescue her, but it was this ticking clock element, and, the scene where Narek, slowly broke down her dream and got her to reveal where she was. And then promptly tried to kill her. That was very exciting stuff. I think that worked extremely well. Although I will say, how sure is he, just because she looks up in the sky and sees a couple of planets, how sure is he that this is actually the place he's looking for? Maybe it's just imagery, dream imagery that has nothing to do with anything, or maybe it's some other planet that's not actually the one he's looking for. But whatever. I mean, it seems like it may have been a bit premature to kill her, and why bother? It's like villains monologuing. Like, why reveal to her that she's not really real before he kills her? I don't know, but I am really happy, I will say, that it didn't turn out that Narek had a romance on her and decided to defy his evil incestuous sister and be like, but I love you and I'm going to break the rule. I'm glad it didn't do that, but I may be speaking too soon on that one because, of course, it's always possible that they'll still do that again later, which hopefully they will not, but at least I'm glad they didn't do it this time. Anyway, so that was really great stuff. And the chase when Picard finds her and tries to convince her, look, please trust me. I'm a friend of your father and your sister, and I want to help you. And he shows her a necklace to prove it, and that was really powerful. I love that, and I love how she was like confused. She was trepidatious. She didn't know who to trust, but eventually she did trust Picard, which I thought was pretty great. And then so they got into the Borg Queen chambers, which had a Iconian gateway thing. they called it something else. They said, "Oh, the Borg assimilated this technology, after we were assimilated, so that's why we don't know about it." But it's basically an Iconian gateway. I don't know what it's called, but anyway, it lets them step through and go wherever they like. And this is, of course, when Elnor makes his very predictable appearance and cuts up the guards and saves the day. Now, nitpick time. Why the hell didn't Elnor go with Picard? This makes zero sense. He's like, oh, I can't go with you because I need to stay behind and protect you. What do you mean protect him? Once he goes through that gate, he's protected. He's gone. He's safe. Why stay behind? The only reason to stay behind is actually to protect Hugh, and he's not. It's not his obligation to protect Hugh. It's his obligation to protect Picard. And it seems to me that the best way to protect Picard is to go with him, and so he can protect him on the other side. To stay behind once Picard's already safe. I don't get it. It makes no sense. So the only explanation I can come up with why Elnor stayed behind is because so the show could happen. Because the plot wanted him to. And again, that's very sloppy writing. And for that matter, why didn't Hugh just go with him for that matter? I know like Hugh was saying that he wants to stay behind and help the Borg, which makes sense, but he should know by helping Picard, he has torched his position there, and the Romulans are going to like torture him if they get his hands on him. So he already ruined that. Like, it's not a matter of he wants to stay behind and help the other Borg. He can't, regardless of whether or not he wants to. So why not just go with Picard and say, like, this makes no sense to me. I don't get it. And speaking of like helping the Borg, it's interesting how Picard was like when Hugh was explaining how he was helping ex-Borg, and they're talking about how they're victims and they're not really seen as victims. And to me, this is getting back to a sort of analogy of like drug addicts and Voyager. The way they portrayed Seven of Nine separation from the Borg was like a drug addict. Which I think that's really interesting. I think that's good stuff. Problem is, first of all, I don't like how the word they phrase it is like, oh, the Borg aren't really bad guys, they're victims. No, the Borg is referring to the collective, and they are bad guys. They're the ones who are victimizing all the people. I think they should have specified and said the Borg drones. The specific drones are not the bad guys. They are victims of the collective. I'm just being nitpicky with language, but it seems to me they're sort of like, oh, the Borg aren't so bad, but the Borg are so bad. It's the drones that are the victims. I think they need to clarify that. But anyway, yeah, so another thing I found kind of interesting about how Picard was like, oh, this is such good work to rehabilitate these victims of the Borg. What about Ensign Lynch? You remember Ensign Lynch from First Contact, who was assimilated by the Borg, and Picard helped him by murdering him? Whatever. Anyway, yeah. So so I found this ending very interesting, where we're in a situation where Picard and Soji have gone off through the Iconian Gateway, and Rios and his team are on the ship. So they're going to go off and try to meet them, but of course Narek is probably going to go try to find them first, and Cersei Lannister as well, and Hugh and Eleanor are trapped on the Borg ship, which is artificial to me. It's obviously they just wanted to do this for the story. But it's a very interesting place to leave the episode, to leave the story, and as I said, it has me very interested in what they're going to do next. So anyway, my rating for the Impossible Burger, for the Impossible Box, out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. And I'm being very generous by giving it an 8, because you've seen how many nitpicks I have with this episode. But I was almost going to give it a 7 because of so many flaws and contrivances, I think, plot contrivances that I think this episode has. But it was one of the most emotionally effective, impactful, and suspenseful and engaging episodes of the show yet. Had it not been for all those flaws, it probably would have been the best episode of the season so far. But the flaws do hold it back, but I think a lot of them I'm willing to overlook and give a pass to, and give this episode an 8 because it was really good. So anyway, that is it for my review of Impossible Box. I will be back next week to review next episode of Picard, so be sure to check that out. Also check out my channel, as I cover many other Star Trek shows, and also other shows like Better Call Saul, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.